Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah, the same
Merry
deal.
Christmas.
It's wonderful to see everybody. And maybe at some point soon we will see each other in person. So let me go to our agenda for this evening. I'm going to share a screen and there's the agenda. So the first item on the list is public participation. And I know in previous meetings, this is where I had turned to Sandy to see if she had any updates from the state. So Jim, I guess I will turn to you. Anything interesting from the state in terms of, meeting in person, anything else COVID related or anything else?
No, the state does not appear to be changing the current protocols. And in fact, I did have a conversation with our Director of Public Health earlier this afternoon. And, the protocols remain the same, even though, COVID numbers are currently going up. We can tell by the numbers that we have in town that, community transmission is pretty significant. I can tell you that we've had some cases within town staff. This time last year, we had a couple, but it appears that we seem to be having a little more than we did this time last year. So I think it just bears saying that, let's be cautious, right? I mean, do the things that you can, and the message from the state is to remain vigilant, get vaccinated, get boosted. I mean, that's really what's coming out of the state at this point.
Thanks, Jim. And I do know that the library held a vaccination clinic a week ago, I think. And I wonder if they probably will hold another one. I think that was their second or third one that they'd held.
Well,
so.
I did actually participate in that as somebody who received my booster shot. We had over 100 people come that day and get booster shots, which was pretty amazing. I do believe we have plans to hold another one in January, but I believe that this one is going to be targeting younger people. We've had a very good partnership with Hartford Healthcare. We started this back in August, thinking, we'll hold a COVID shot clinic with our most popular summer concert. And it's really just taken root and continued since August, which is really pretty amazing. And the turnout has been nothing short of way more than we expected. So I think it's nice to have something like that, directly in our community that can not only serve our community, but the surrounding communities.
That's awesome.
Were there very many first timers?
I think, this particular clinic, you had to sign up. And it really, this specific clinic was for booster shots.
Okay.
In the past, when we've had, just first and second shot clinics, the turnout hasn't been as good, but it's, look, if we can get anybody, that, comes out just because we made it easier for them, I think it's worth the effort.
Sure.
I agree.
I did just hear from Pam. She's unable to make it this evening.
Okay.
As far as that COVID shot meeting, my understanding was it really gave an opportunity for people who are having trouble getting boosters. And they actually took advantage of that and came to the library to have it instead. So it's working out well for the public in addition to, the convenience.
Nice.
That's great feedback. Thank you, Charlie.
Yep.
Jim, do you know, in terms of meeting virtually, we are still allowed to do this for the foreseeable future?
That's correct.
Okay. Then when we get down and we just talk through the budget calendar, want to get everybody's what they would like to do, at least for the foreseeable future, the next few meetings, virtually or in person or some hybrid of that. So let's start our agenda. Approval of the minutes. Did anybody get a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes.
Excuse me, I did as well, and did not find any reason to modify or change.
Okay.
Same with me. Looked fine.
Ross,
well.
did you have anything, or Mather?
No,
Okay.
fine.
Then do
I
I,
move that we accept the meeting minutes as offered.
Second.
okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
nays? No nays? No abstentions? Okay, passes. The next thing on the agenda is the Board of Education update. So let me bring up the Board of Ed, which is over here. Oops, sorry, that's our meeting minutes.
There you go.
We do not have anybody from the Board of Education here this evening. I can tell you just from being in the schools, the teachers and students are being as vigilant as they can in terms of mask wearing and cleaning. And we do have an uptick in cases in the schools. But I do know that, we are still in person. So as of November 30th, Board of Education has expended 30% of their appropriated budget.
Excuse me, Emily,
Yeah.
before we move on. And one thing I was hoping, now, are they on school vacation yet or what?
No, tomorrow is a half day.
Okay, and then it starts.
So finishing at 11 a.m. for the high school and 12 for the middle school and elementary school. And then they will be off until Monday, January 3rd.
Right, all those teachers and the kids too need a break.
Yeah,
Tough sledding.
Emily, this is Linda.
yes.
This is last year's report.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. So I will backtrack on that statement. So as of November 30th, 2021, this year, we've expended 28% of the appropriated budget. Last year, we were at 30%. I do know that there are certain positions that are still not filled, paraprofessionals or IAs, however you want to call them. So that is contributing to some under expenditures in the salary component. And I do see here that from insurance changes from life events, a couple of new hires have elected lower coverage than the people that they had replaced. So I think Superintendent Heck did mention last month that there were a few new staff at the high school, and I think one new person at the center school. So that is that's a good thing in terms of savings that we will hopefully see. Does anybody have any questions about the Board of Education update that I can, if I can't answer, I can talk to Superintendent Hecht or actually, good question. Has the Board of Ed met, and who is the current chair of the Board of Ed? Is it still Andrew Broneal? Do we know that? Jim, do you know?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay. So I will, if there are any questions that are for the Board of Education or Superintendent Hecht, I will ask her or whoever the chair is. And I apologize that I did not didn't look that up before coming to the meeting. So
Emily?
yes.
Just as not a question, but just an observation. I did go back and look at the previous year And at this point in time, of course, last year we had like a really significant surplus of funds. That really came from the wages and benefits predominantly. And so this year we're 28% expended at the end of November. Previous years, as you had just shown a minute ago, we were 30% expended, and the year previous to that, 32. So I think that what that indicates is the continuing number of vacancies and less insurance costs, and the fact that we actually had a savings or a decrease in the rate on health insurance, which they were unable to estimate, during budget season.
But to that last point there, Bob, yes, they couldn't articulate it during the actual budget, but they did come to a number, I think, before the final referendum. And so that was one of when we reduced the Board of Ed, there was an amount that we reduced it by that was equivalent to what they projected that savings to be, because they did have more information at that.
Yeah, I believe that was the case, Emily. However, I do want to note that that number I thought was very, very conservative at the time. And I think this bears out where we're headed.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure this $80,000 that that they're showing here, the insurance changes were from the new hires that were brought on in the past month. Their benefits are lower than what the previous people who held those positions were. So that is definitely a savings there on benefits.
Yeah, no, some of that could be explained by just the way pay period falls or whatever else, but just as an observation.
Yep, duly noted. Any other questions for,
Emily, this is Linda again.
yes,
I went on the website, and according to the website, Andrew Broniel is still the chairperson.
thank you very much, Linda. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay. Then moving to the next item on the agenda is the revenue summary. And let me go over to the revenues. Are you seeing November's revenues?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. I have to reshare. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow me just to flip over.
Oh, then we can see everybody again, though. It's good.
Okay. Oh, I should have gone, sorry. Well, let's start with revenues and then we'll go to tax collection. My apologies. So if we take a look at where we are on our overall revenues from a property tax perspective, we'll talk about that with the other report, but in general, we are doing quite well. The supplemental will be going out soon, so we don't expect to see anything in that bucket yet. In terms of other grants, we did get our municipal stabilization grant in. I'm just sort of scrolling through. Jim, are there any of these that we have not, that we are worried about getting at any point? I think we'll be getting late.
No, I had a conversation with Jill the other day, and she is not seeing any red flags at this point. And, this report has not really changed much since we met last. And really, it probably isn't going to until we start receiving the revenues from the supplemental motor vehicle tax. And then we should start to see some numbers change here a little bit.
Okay. I do know that there was a question last meeting about this miscellaneous revenue, the fact that it is 1,238.03%. I don't know if that went out to everybody or just to me. There was we sold a truck And that's what the 22,000 or the 22,000 was, is that from the sale of that truck, and that, because that's where that revenue was booked.
Hey, Emily,
Yes, Charlie.
did, I know the supple list is probably close to being signed if it hasn't been signed already. And I noticed that we've allowed $175,000 for tax revenue on that. Do we have any I'm wondering if the projections show that 175 is still within reason, or we might be higher or lower in the actual, projected levy.
I don't have any information on that. Jim, do you?
All I can say is that, Jill coordinates this report with her communication with Lori. So I got to think that it's reasonably accurate as to what's anticipated, Charlie.
Yeah, I did see on the stuff that was sent out to us, the very last page, I think, was a copy of the supplemental list for 2020. And it did show a number that was considerably higher than the 175. And I was just wondering if I was reading into things or just not really seeing the right thing, so.
I will, actually, hold on a second. Oop, it's upside down. Give me a
Yeah,
second.
that's it.
Do you see it?
No, not yet,
Okay.
but it did come through upside down to me, so.
Yeah. Okay, if you rotate it a bit. So it looks like from this,
Total taxes due is,
$261,431.72.
so it does sound encouraging as far as the possible additional revenue we might get.
Okay, yeah, I'll touch base with Jill. And just,
I will say that when we're doing those estimates, we do tend to be a little bit conservative because we want to make sure we at least hit that target.
Right.
So it's probably a little lower than what we actually anticipate receiving, but I don't know that it's that much lower.
Is that being part of the people that estimated 175,000? I think that's a good, safe proposition, and this does show an encouraging result.
Yeah.
yes. So that would be a very nice little windfall there, along with the truck sale of 22,000, so, or 24,000, I don't recall. Okay.
We'll need it, yeah.
I think we will. Okay, next, let's look at our tax revenues from here. Okay, where we are right now, it does roll up into the other report. We are at 99%, 91%. I mean, the fact that we're at 99% and we have still that the second bill, which is not due until, well, it's due January 1st, correct, Jim? And then late on January 31st or February 1st?
February 1st. It may actually be the second or third, but yes, that's accurate.
I don't see anything yet on that.
Oh, you don't?
That's
No,
not
it's-
Nope, it
It's-
says you've
it's-
started screen sharing.
It's still buffering.
It's still buffering. Well, gotta love buffering here. Let's see if I can get it to, why is it paused?
It's thinking.
It's thinking resume share. Well, it is thinking about sharing. Let me try it one more time, and if not, I will,
Just highlight a few of the things. We're down just a tad over last year, I think.
yeah. Well, I can tell you that as of, we're at 99.52% this year, and we were at 100.17 last year. And you know what, that doesn't concern me. I mean, we're a little low because we sent out bills with the lower mill rate on it, and so we still
Right.
have a bit to collect over the next month. So I don't see that being an issue.
I agree.
Okay. Then I will not attempt to share that any further, because apparently the report does not want to be shared this evening.
More of the same doesn't do any good.
I
The
know.
comment was fine.
Okay, so then town update. So we want expenditures from that, and let's see if that one would like
See
to
if that one will work.
fiscal 22. Okay, it's still saying my screen sharing is paused.
Well, I know you've all received it in your packages. And you've probably, knowing this group, you've probably already taken a few minutes to look at it. And you'll note that, you know, we're really on track for spending. There are currently no red flags for us when we take a look at that expenditure sheet. Yeah, I don't know really that there's a lot more to say about that, truthfully. Anybody have any questions?
Just an observation, Jim, on the, in regards to highways. I almost thought I might see a little bit lower number there. We did have one storm where I think they brought the trucks out. And right now we're short 2 storms already in December compared to what we've had in the last several years.
Well, and it's been mild too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so I mean, a lot of times we won't have plowed much by this time, but often
Mhm.
we would have, you know, done some salting and sanding.
Yep.
You know, projections were that we were going to need them to come out last night. You know, they did come out briefly for a little while, but as it turns out, it just the freeze never materialized. So again, you know, we've been really fortunate.
Mhm.
If this trend continues, you know, we may be, you know, in really good shape there at the end of this year. And, you know, it goes into that conversation that we have when we're looking to create the budget for, you know, for next year, right? Do you create a budget that's for an average winter? Do you create a budget for a bad winter, or do you figure something somewhere in between? And that's typically where we try to put that number. So if that number is in fact somewhere between an average winter and a bad winter, and we're currently expecting a mild winter, I would expect, as you pointed out, Bob, that, you know, we'll have some funds left in that portion of the highway budget at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's always tempting to think about reducing them. And this is like the 3rd, maybe the 4th winter now in a row, where, you know, or 3 winters previous to this one, where most of our winter was in December. And we had, I think, in each of those 3 years, 3 significant storms that brought all the equipment out for at least 3 storms. And it's always tempting to maybe, you know, hit that line item, but I agree with you. You know, you really need to stick with this is an average number, and it gets moved up a bit, you know, considering the cost of material and that kind of stuff. Yeah, we don't go wrong by sticking with the long-term average on this, but it is interesting to watch.
It is, absolutely.
Warmer winters.
Well, and I think, you know, one of the things that has happened, and I think we can say that we've seen that in this last year is, right, you know, we're having a milder winter, but, you know, we had some summer storms that were way beyond what we anticipated. And, you know, that causes us some overtime and some equipment expense and, you know, things of that nature. So I think, you know, maybe in some way, you know, some of these things have a way to you know, they have a tendency to balance out over the course of the year.
Yeah, no, I think it's the right thing to do to budget for sort of the average, because you're right. Some years we're going to get a nice mild winter, and some years we're going to get slammed, and we'll have an ice storm in August or a hurricane and So-
Whatever's coming next.
so, okay. Any other updates from the town side? There was nothing on the report that stood out to me as being worrisome. And I know usually you highlight things in yellow if you're concerned. There was nothing highlighted in yellow.
So the only other thing I'll add is, we're starting to get some preliminary numbers on health insurance for next year, and they look very, very favorable. I think we'll be seeing a very minimal increase. So this change in insurance seems to have been a very good decision.
Yeah.
Good.
I think we're, my conversations with Jill are it's going to be a very minimal increase based on what we're hearing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, not only like, us going in there, I don't know what happened with the other towns that we were associated with, and as we were moving more towards the self-insurance concept. But if other towns abandon those kinds of efforts and got into the state pool, that makes their, large numbers even easier to work. So.
Well, and it looks like, it looks like the State Appropriations Committee has actually put some additional funding in that account.
Yes, I noticed that.
That I think happened earlier this week. And so that, that account is now funded at the level that it's supposed to be, which I think, is really good for the future of the plan.
Yeah, for smoothing everything out.
And should help even things out over time, which I think is very positive for us and for the state and for all of the towns that belong to that insurance plan.
Yeah, that was what, 30 million?
Yeah, it was pretty significant.
Yeah. Yeah, no, good point. And it should serve to even it out. And, with more towns conceivably going into it, and I was reading something that other businesses, I guess, that can soon begin to participate too. So.
Yeah, well, it'll definitely, I hope it plays out that way, because that would be, we can't do another 17% increase or whatever it was.
Yeah, the insurance companies are obviously up in arms over it, so see where it goes.
Okay. Anything else on the town side?
Nothing from me unless anybody's got specific questions.
I don't have anything. Anyone?
Oh, moving on.
Okay. Then let's move to the new business section of our agenda. The first item was discussing the upcoming changes to the Board of Finance structure. I know that some questions have come up on what is happening, and I figured I would attempt to share. Hey, it actually worked.
Hey, did it.
So this is highlighted from the actual the document that is now out there for the charter that talks about the finance committee.
And this charter has been filed with the town clerk, the Secretary of State, and the Connecticut Law Library. So it is official.
Okay. What questions do people have about this going forward? I can at least try to answer as many as I can. And if I can't, then I will go back to the experts and try to get answers from people. In short, what I understand is that this will go into effect starting in 2023. So that the election cycle that happens then is going to elect the Board of Selectmen with this new structure of first selectman and 6 selectmen. And then from there, in addition, there will be 3 members that are going to be elected from the public at large to serve on the finance committee. The rest of the finance committee would be made up of 2 members from the Board of Education and 2 members from the Board of Selectmen. The terms will be staggered, so that every 2 years, only a portion, approximately half of the board would be reelected. And that applies to the Board of Selectmen as well as to the Finance Committee.
So our terms will end in 2023.
So all of our terms are up in 2023, and it will be up to us individually to decide, do we want to run for the Board of Selectmen, with the idea that we would represent the Board of Selectmen on the Finance Committee, run for one of the 3 spots for the Finance Committee that's from the public at large, or run for the Board of Education. The Board of Education seats are not expanding, so two of the current structure of the Board of Education would be representatives on the Finance Committee. And that's how I understand it based on reading this and being involved in the discussions.
I think you're right.
Any particular questions that people have? Okay.
So then our last meeting as this group of people would be at after the elections, or when, at the end of the year? When do we go out of business as this organization?
I think once the new, so election day of 2023 is when the new Finance Committee will be in effect.
Yeah.
So I would assume that our last meeting would be, as this group, October of 2023.
Mhm.
So then I guess there's really no transition.
No, not to my understanding. I think ideally several of us would run for either as a Board of Selectmen to be on the Finance Committee, or one of the 3 positions that are coming from public at large, or potentially Board of Ed.
Well,
So that would be the transition.
yeah, and I would say that if you did run for Selectman or Board of Education, you've got no guarantee that you would be the one who's picked to be on
True.
Board of Finance. If you went for one of the 3 generally elected offices and won, then you definitely are.
Yes, this is very true.
I just wanted to clarify that because I wasn't seeing that there was necessarily any guarantee that if we ran for any of those positions, we would get put on this new board based on past experience.
No, I have not read anything that is given. However, I would think that if one of us were to get elected to the Board of Selectmen, given our past history with the finance, it may make sense to be appointed to the committee, just for knowledge perspective. So.
Yeah, okay, because I was just mostly concerned because I had met Jill in the hallway a couple of weeks ago, and she and I were talking about, transition period. And so I'm glad that we're having this discussion, but it appears that it's like, okay, no, tag back October.
Yeah,
I heard that line in a long
I
time, Ross.
understand it, but I will, you know what, I'm gonna double check with the the Charter Revision Commission and the others powers that be.
It's just one that this is such like a detailed process that requires a certain amount of knowledge, and we will have done a certain amount of things between the end of, this fiscal year and the next one before this next group starts. It just sounds like it's an ideal way to drop the ball someplace, because that's usually the challenge around transitions is, making sure that there's some way that the information gets passed from the old team to the new one. And since this is kind of important to the running of the town, it would be good if we didn't drop any major balls.
Yes. I mean, even if I'm not reelected to any of those components, I'm definitely happy to work with the new committee coming in to share knowledge. Because you're right, there's a learning curve. As Mather, I'm sure, is sitting there going, there's a lot of stuff here. So
Yep. So
Um,
if you would check on that just to see what they're thinking about that, that would be a very good thing, because it just doesn't sit well with me if that's all that we do is like we say, okay, we're done, and then here's the new group starting, and there's no real continuity.
mhm. Well, I will say that I think with the change to the Board of Selectmen, the fact that it is going to be 4-year terms with staggered actually is good, because prior it was every 2 years and the whole board was
Yep.
reelected. So talk about transition. If it was a whole brand new board, you could have, 4 new people that plus the first selectman that had never served before. So
Yep.
I think, that is a good thing there. But you're right, this transition to the finance committee, if none of the people that I see on this screen are involved with that, there is definitely a loss of knowledge and experience.
Or even just where we are, even if you ignore the experience, it would be good that they know, here's what we've gotten done so far, and this is what we're handing over to you. At least that much happens.
Yeah. So I will follow up with that. And, as we get closer, depending on what we find out with this, there needs to be a transition. So, and I know I will be working towards that as well. So. Okay. Next, anything else for this?
Nope.
Okay, then the next item on the agenda is to appoint a Kappa representative. So we have the Kappa committee meets several times to prioritize the capital improvement projects, and they're targeting to have one of their first meetings in January, and someone from the Board of Finance is to be represented. So somebody from the Board of Selectmen, Board of Ed, and Board of Finance sit on the Kappa committee. So we do need to appoint somebody from this board to represent that. I don't know if anybody has an interest to do that. I will share that Kristen Gorley has expressed an interest to me. When she told me she couldn't come, she said if she would be willing to put her name in that hat to be the Kappa representative.
When do they meet?
I do not have a meeting schedule. It is much more ad hoc. I know they were trying to make a meeting in January because they were looking to who our representative is. I'm like, I can't tell you till after tonight's meeting. So
I believe it's, probably about 3 meetings a year. Not too much. They have an agenda, of projects to review. And then vote on what's going to go ahead, what's not.
So I know there's prioritizations in there as well when it comes, when you're looking at it, what should be higher than the other things in the priority. And that's the list then comes to us at budget time. So. Yeah, Bob?
I wanted to ask Mather a question. We've been lucky enough over the years to have a number of people with some real experience in construction and construction management and stuff. And not the least, I mean, somebody like Charlie as well, who spent a lot of time reviewing all kinds of stuff related to that. So, I mean, I'd like to find out if either of those guys have an interest, because we had Matt Malucci as an example for few years, 4 years to do that. And he was in building management. So it's really good when we have people with, real experience, on the ground in regards to, pricing of projects and getting them accomplished. So That'd be my thought. I appreciate the fact that Kristen has volunteered, which is great. So maybe we'll have a little bit more interest than we do normally in that spot. But it is a real good assurance for our group to have somebody that knows what the hell's going on there.
And this is for all of the town projects that we're looking to.
Yes.
Yep.
It's for that whole list. So town side, ed side. Charlie, Mather, Ross, any of you interested in doing it?
It's one of those things I'd be interested, but I just don't have the time. So I'm glad if Kirsten, is available.
Yeah, I would be, it's interesting to me. I don't know that I want to take that on now, to be honest.
Okay.
Okay, but it could be, it's a yearly thing, so.
And I'm trying to cut back on things, so I'd be willing to support Kirsten if she needs any help or any advice or.
And Emily, if I might, what I would say to that is, I think it's great that there's some interest here. And if Kristen ends up being the representative from the Board of Finance, it doesn't preclude any of you from coming to the meeting
True.
and listening in or
True.
reading the minutes afterward. So that you know what's going on from that perspective. And you can get acclimated, even if you make one out of the 3 meetings, so that if you are interested down the road, you're not going into it cold and you have the opportunity to, hear what the discussion is that's going on around, these various projects that we hope to be able to accomplish to move certain things forward in the town.
Yeah, well said, Jim. And like I said, we've just been lucky, I think, to have people who, number one, have an interest, two, particularly have a background. So it's really assuring when, we come to that, those projects, et cetera, to know that there's been another set of eyes on it, and eyes that are maybe with a little bit different focus.
Yeah, I was going to ask the question that Jim already answered, was that I would be interested in maybe sitting in on the meetings just to see what's involved and what the thought process is and that kind of thing before committing to actually doing it. I'd be interested in learning more about it.
Good.
For sure.
Okay.
So I could, if she's gonna do that, I could reach out to her or get in touch with her to find out when the meetings are and get involved that way.
Okay. Then I guess I need a motion and a second in terms of who our Kappa representative is.
I would move to nominate Kristen Gorley to be our representative on the Kappa board.
And I will second that.
Okay. Just by quick roll call, all in favor, or if you're in favor, say aye, otherwise say nay. Bob,
Aye.
Charlie,
Aye.
Mather,
Aye.
Ross,
All right.
and I also say aye. So Kristen will be our Kappa representative, and I will let her know to, as meetings come up, just inform the whole board. And if, any one of us is able to and interested in attending, we can, pop in if we want to.
Yeah, have her reach out to me because I would be interested in that.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. I will let her know that. Okay, the next item on our agenda is we need to approve our Board of Finance budget for next year that's going to go into the budget and the auditor's budget. So I will attempt to see if you know what? It is not liking my sharing of in Excel. Let me see if I can open up that document in a different way. And Okay. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason it doesn't want to open up things in Excel, but it will in the browser, whatever. So if you take a look at, this is our Board of Finance budget, you can see that last year we had $1,565 in payroll, $52 in advertising, and $448 in operating expenses. Jill has put this together for us. What we're proposing to put into the budget for this coming fiscal year is $1,300 in payroll, $70 in advertising, and $830 in expenses. So it's actually it's actually exactly the same as ask from the current fiscal year that we're in, the $2,200, just shifted a little bit between operating expenses and advertising. Advertising costs have gone up a little bit, so we put a little bit more in, another $10 in advertising. We have to advertise anytime we have our meetings, et cetera, in the paper and et cetera. So and when we have referendums, obviously there's advertising having to do with upcoming things there. Does anybody have any questions or comments on on the budget to go forward?
So just a quick question. This would assume that this would then cover like the number of referenda that we had this year.
So the payroll here actually is to cover the board clerk costs.
Yeah, that's what I mean, because we would have to have her or him come for extra times because of those special meetings around, the referenda.
Yeah.
And the same
So
thing with advertising too, I would imagine if you're having a special meeting, you have to advertise that as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So the actual referendum numbers are in a different budget, but in order to support our meetings to come up with new numbers, yes, that's
That's what I meant.
be all in there. Yep.
And not the actual voting expenses. That's separate. This is
That's
just
separate.
our
Yeah.
expenses related to that potential number of votes.
Yes. If there are no other questions, I need a motion and a second to approve this budget to going forward.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed budget as going forward.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mather. By roll call, Bob Monroe,
Aye.
Charlie,
Aye.
Ross, Mather,
Aye.
and I also approve it. So this is our budget.
You say aye,
Aye, aye, aye, sir. Okay, and then the second budget that we need to, let me open it up a different way as well, because that. Okay, so the second budget that we have to approve this evening is for auditing services. Our actual expenditures for 2021 were $26,000. What we had budgeted for this year was $26,500. The request for this coming year is $29,000. There is an additional report that the auditor needs to produce for us this year. And that is what's causing the additional increase in our auditing services.
What's the additional report?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I totally forgot what Jill had told me.
It has to do with the amount of federal funding that we're
That's what I was
taking in
thinking.
here.
That's what it is. Yes. It is exactly that. It is the fact that we've gotten federal funding from grants because of COVID.
Yeah.
He he has to file additional report,
We have to-
demonstrating what monies came in, how we use them,
Okay,
tie everything.
yep,
Thank you, Jim, for reminding me.
makes sense.
So, so can I have a motion to,
Oh, I'm sorry.
for this
I have
budget?
one
Oh,
question- another
Bob,
question
yes?
before we go on. Does that require a modification of our contract with him? Where I really don't recall whether or not it's, that type of contingency might be covered. If it's agreed between the parties, maybe it's just fine. I don't know.
For contractually, I don't know. I sort of see this as, this is something different than what he has, that we typically have him do year over year.
X for contractual.
Yeah.
Yeah, so may have to have something, I don't know. Maybe just a memorandum of understanding or something.
Yeah. I'm assuming that we will, I can double check that, but I'm assuming, yeah, we would have an additional memorandum with them saying
Okay.
that to produce this additional report for this amount of money. Charlie?
Yeah, I do, I'm a little confused why the Board of Finance, this particular reporting comes out of the Board of Finance rather than just under another accounting practice to justify what where all these monies went. I'm not sure if the line item that should appear for us or not. That's what I'm a little confused about.
So this budget, the auditing budget, because we're the ones who look at the audit and approve the audit, and put the budget, and basically contract with Jill's assistance with the auditor. That's why it's technically our budget.
He works for us.
He works for the Board of Finance.
So this isn't a special report. It's all part of what normal practice would be for the town of Bolton.
Yes. So every year, we decide what the auditing services budget is. Now, I know that, I think it was 3 years ago, Bob, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
We made a contract with the auditor saying that we would use him for the next 3 years at this price. And this was this fee schedule. So every year it's been sort of a non-issue as to what the numbers are in here, because it's contractually, this is what we said we would pay him. So this is what we have to pay him, kind of thing. So this one additional report that he has to do because of all the federal funding that we've gotten is sort of an addition to that, but we're still sort of working with the same contract that he's had with us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And if I might just add to that, this gentleman, makes himself available to us when we have questions. He is a great asset to have really as part of, really part of the team. When we have, special circumstances, like, we ordered a trailer for the fire department, which is not, which was out of last year's budgets, but it's not going to come in until the end of, toward the end of this fiscal year. He was available to Jill to talk about how to deal with that from an accounting perspective so that it doesn't create a finding when he does his audit, for this current fiscal year. So, I think we get a lot for that fee that we're paying. So I just thought I'd put that out there for you.
Thanks, Jim. Bob?
Yeah, I think that, he has been a great service to us at a far lower prices than the people that we've had over the years. This is the end of his second term. I believe the first one was 3 years as well. But I think it would be, if you would be so kind as to ask Jill, and we may have to just have a short MOU here between us and him, so that he won't end up being obligated to write himself and us up as a problem. expending monies that were not supposed to be expended. So I don't think this does it. I think it's going to be require, some wording and a couple of signatures.
Okay. I can follow up with her on that.
But contingent on that, I would make a motion to accept this budget for auditing services as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, by roll call, Bob,
Aye.
Charlie,
aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Mather,
Aye.
and Emily, I. Okay. Thank you. And then the last item on our agenda is really just to review our, the agenda says draft a budget calendar, but we approved the budget calendar last meeting. So I want to make sure that everybody is oh, we seem to be missing.
Yeah.
That was in a separate email to me
Yeah.
anyway.
I know it has, well, we are, sorry about that. We are going with the Thursdays, meeting dates. So our next ones will be, January, it's at the bottom of our agenda, January 20th, and then February 17th. The draft of the budget calendar, the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education are, have to have their budgets to us by March 15th. And what is being proposed right now is meetings on the 17th, 22nd, the 24th, 29, 31, 7, 19, 21. If necessary. I think when we put this together, it is, trying to get through 2 meetings a week if we need it. At this point, we don't have to, because these are all going to be special meetings. So at this point, does anybody see any issues with any of these meetings? I do know it is noted here that Bolton Public Schools are on spring break the 18th through the 21st. So that may mean some members of the Board of Education may not be available. May mean that some of the members of the Board of Finance may not be available. We do have to have the budget filed with the town clerk by the 22nd because our public hearing, we're right now we're scheduling for the 26th. And it has to be before May 1st. So typically it's a Tuesday night. The past 2 years, it has been virtual. We'll have to see what May brings or March, April, May brings to know if it's going to be virtual or in person. Do any dates right now cause a problem for anybody? Because we can right now change them. Otherwise, we'll revisit this again as it gets closer to see if there's anything that needs to be shifted.
No issues here.
Okay, then this will be the meeting schedule that we're going to work forward with for right now for the budget season. I did want to let everyone know that the Board of Ed, if anybody is interested in sitting in on their budget workshops, they have a budget workshop on February 10th at 7 p.m. and then February 24th at 6:30 p.m. I do not have a list of the Board of Selectmen budget discussions. But Jim, maybe you and I could work together to get a comprehensive list of all of those meetings, just to send it out to the Board of Finance, should anybody want to sit in on meetings.
Yeah, if you want, you just reach out to Kathy. She's got that list.
Okay. I do know that they will be starting soon. I mean, as you can tell, we have our 2 budgets that we're putting into that. So conversations will be starting with the Board of Selectmen on the detailed budgets. So I will put together an email with all of the meeting dates. Should anybody want to sit in on any of the detailed budget discussions, I do find them interesting. There are a lot of them, and so I understand that I don't expect everyone to go to all of them, because that's hard. But if you are able to attend 1 or 2, I do think find it interesting and helpful when we get into budget discussions.
They're virtual meetings or are they in person?
They were virtual, and
I believe these will become, for the Board of Selectmen, I believe they will be combination.
so that then you can sort of zoom in and listen in if you want. Board of Ed, I think, has been meeting. Actually, I don't know that for a fact. Have they been meeting virtually or in combination? I don't know. So I will let you know. Pardon?
I don't know either. I know we've been, Board of Selectmen have been meeting in person, but we always make it available virtually as well.
Okay. Which sort of brings me to my next question. So our next meeting is, I said Thursday, January 20th at 7 p.m. We have the option to meet in person. We also are still allowed to meet via Zoom. And I will ask the board, what would you like to do? And we can do a combination. If some people would like to be in person, we can set it up. We have the capability, I understand, to set it up so that we can have some people in person and some people on Zoom.
And then you'll have to, if you do that, my understanding is you have to designate somebody to be responsible for the AV equipment to do that. If you do
Yes.
a hybrid.
I know that somebody had talked to me right when we thought we were going in person. I told them, yes, you can train me on how to use it. And then we didn't. So
I will tell you, it's very simple. They've trained me to do it. So if they can train me to do it, I'm sure any of you are more than capable.
good to know, Jim.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think Bob's buying it. Sorry. So what is the board's feeling? Do we want to try and do it? I mean, right now, COVID, Omicron is out there. It's virulent. And so
I was going to put out that I would be inclined to wait until the positivity rate goes down, because it seems to go down with the warmer weather. And then it would be good, it seems to me, to take advantage of that opportunity to meet in person, instead of just like locking ourselves away the whole year like we did this year. So that would be my thoughts, is let's play it, by ear and see what happens. But I would feel more comfortable waiting until like March or so and see what the positivity rate looks like. But that's my 2 bits.
Emily, this is Linda.
yeah.
And Jim too. This question is for Jim. I've never done a hybrid meeting. I'm wondering how difficult it is for the clerk to do that virtually.
I don't think it's difficult, especially, I mean, you would really be seeing exactly what you're seeing right now.
Even
And
if some people were on premises and some people were via Zoom.
Yes, I think you'd be essentially seeing what you're seeing now, And it does become very important that people identify themselves, especially if it's a bigger meeting and you're not familiar with everybody that's there.
Mm.
You know, but we haven't really experienced, you know, real difficulties yet. Our board clerk from the Board of Selectmen does not come to the meeting. She does them virtually from her home location while the Board of Selectmen are meeting in person, and she has not expressed any concern over difficulty. But she has interjected and asked somebody to, you know, please state their name once or twice.
Okay. How does this work for like public hearings and such when you have a larger audience of attendees?
I don't know that I've seen it for a larger venue as yet.
Okay. I'm just saying my comfort level right now is nowhere near close to coming back to in-person meetings. So,
Fair enough.
Has anyone ever watched the recordings of this meeting? This meeting is being recorded, right? And it's played again on the public
CBC.
access?
I watch it only because you know, if I miss something in the minutes, I go back and look at it.
Yeah, but that's something that might be able to be available to ahead of time or other than what's scheduled on TV, perhaps.
Perhaps. I know that I have channel surfed and come upon us and have stopped and watched us just because I was curious to see what it looks like to somebody from the outside.
And you're okay?
It looks pretty good, yeah. So, and then I think, oh, well, I've already heard this meeting, so I'd move on to a different channel.
So Linda, to speak to your comfort level of with a hybrid meeting, I was, you know, in insurance industry for a while, and for years we would do hybrid meetings like this where we would have some people together in a conference room and some people would be calling in. At first we did it all audio calls, and then we started doing, you know, video calls like this. And I would often be the one taking notes as the project manager. We didn't have an admin. And so I was able to do it. And it was just, and we would have the recording afterwards if I needed to go back and take a look at anything to make sure my notes were accurate. They were, you know, we recorded the calls as well. It does take a little bit of, you know, juggling and remembering if, you know, you're in the room there is to, make sure you know who's talking, and especially if we don't have video, say it's a person calling in, you may need to ask them to identify themselves. But that's exactly, you know, what I would wind up doing.
Right. Well, I record all your meetings. I have my little recorder sitting on top of my laptop right now, so I'm recording you guys myself, so I have something to fall back on.
So I just was curious, what was your concern? Was it more of how do you keep track of all the action, or was it the COVID piece? I wasn't quite sure. That's why I'm sharing my part about how I did it.
I just have never done a hybrid meeting, and I'm just wondering if you know, this size meeting is manageable.
Yeah.
But when you start getting into, you know, agendas that have topics that people are really interested in and start signing in, and you've got 20 people on Zoom, or half of them are in the building and half of them are on Zoom, and
yeah. It does get hard. So what I would do is I would ask people to, you know, make sure we just had one conversation. And if I wasn't sure who was speaking because they were on the phone, I would just say, excuse me, could you please identify yourself? I'm not sure who you are.
okay.
When we get to larger meetings, and, you know, I will help you make that happen. And obviously at any point you're not sure, you know, break in and I will.
I mean, if COVID ever, you know, goes down to a, you know, what it was during the summer when it was really, really low, that's a different story. But right now it's just.
Yeah, I almost have the feeling this hybrid meeting is not going to go away. It's that once we get to be doing this back, you know, even if COVID went away, there's still something to be said for allowing the public to participate in this way, even if they can't, you know, even if there is no COVID. So this might also just continue.
If I was in a household by myself, it would be different, but I have a spouse who's older than me, and, you know, I have to look out for him as well. So
Fair enough.
Careful.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is let's keep Zooming At least for the time being, let's keep an eye on the positivity rates. And if they get to a point where we are comfortable or the state mandates we have to be, someone has to be in person, then we'll tackle that when we get there.
Yep.
Fair enough? Okay.
That's something we can look at each particular meeting too, make a decision whether we want to go vertical and, public or whatever.
You can go vertical. I'm going to stay vertical. Thanks.
Well, they're saying that the trajectory of this latest, the Omicron, was vertical, but now they're saying that the experience in South Africa is that once it hit the peak, which it evidently did about a week ago, it's going back down just as fast, which is interesting and hopeful.
Interesting. I hope that's what we see. So our January meeting, Thursday evening, Thursday, January 20th, Zoom. And we'll just sort of take it meeting by meeting. Fair
Sounds good.
Yep. Sounds
Okay.
good to me.
There is nothing else on the agenda. So I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. Stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy yourselves. And maybe we'll get a white Christmas. I heard a little snow in the forecast, so
We shall see.
we shall see.
Well, let's not roll the trucks on Christmas Eve.
No, that's not
Or
Christmas
Christmas
Eve, but a little dusting's okay.
Well, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry
Take
Christmas.
care.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.